Good day, Meticulous Moments. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another exhilarating session here at the Meticulous Moments podcast, where we facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And I'm here with a very special guest today. His name is A Majestic, and we are going to have a lovely discussion on some very contemporary topics. Welcome, A. How are you?
I'm blessed. I'm grateful to be here, and thank you so much. And I send peace and love to all viewers, everybody in the that's receiving this in open minds to raising our consciousness as a collective whole.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, for making the time. I know you're very, very busy, and I'm very happy that you could add this to your calendar. Now, let's start with who is A Majestic? Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So I'm going to reciprocate that. Thank you for your time, and thank you, everybody, in this moment right now. And really quick, anybody who wants to slow down for a moment and just be in the present moment, there's a chant and meditation I do, and it's just a simple 3, 6, 9. And for me, myself, that helps ground myself and bring me to the moment. And who am I? And I'm just a being trying to grow, self-evolve, and better myself. I'm answering your question.
Oh, I hear you. That's wonderful. I know you're a firefighter by profession, and you have quite a, family involvement in the firefighting. Your dad has a legacy with that as well. I know there's a deputy chief. I know there's other members of your family that are firefighters. So tell us more about that, and, where are you situated, and more details on that. That would be wonderful.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm a former firefighter, and I'm part of what some would call a legacy, or but there's different qualifications for the terminology legacy. But with respect and love to all the firefighters that died in 9/11, 343 firefighters had lost their lives.
Yeah.
A friend of my family, rest in peace, Father Chaplain. Chaplain Judge. He was the first uniformed firefighter to die, passed away in 9/11. And the way he passed was actually a tribute to the person or the soul that Father Judge was. He went in front of the World Trade Center and he was giving last rites. People.
Okay, take your time. Take your time. It's okay.
People were jumping off the buildings and splattering on the street. And he came and he was giving a person that jumped from whatever store it was, they were burning so intensely hot that they felt that it was a better option to jump. And the first firefighter was Father Judge and Chaplain Judge, and he was giving the person their last rites. And somebody fell on top. So, yeah. I don't. But my honor and respect to my dad. My dad was a responder, was deputy chief. That's the second in command under the commissioner. He was unified with the Secret Service and on a detail. My godfather, sometimes he's a former deacon, pastor. Uncle Mel Hazel is my godfather. We call him Uncle. Sometimes they air his story on History Channel during 9/11 Memorial. and tribute. My brother Jesse Murphy was down there as well, and my brother my brother was on the pile, and he found I think it was the commissioner Gansey, our family friend as well. He found them, and they pulled them out. My unit was the second to 9/11, and after I got on. Good job. So yeah. My unit was in the response second to 9/11, the World Trade Center. But yeah, so I'll leave it there.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, and our condolences to each and every person that lost family members today, that day, that lost family members that day, team members that day. Yeah, our hearts just really go out to you, and thank you for sharing that. I know it's difficult for you. You have been imparting, yeah?
Thank you, everybody, service that was down there, not just the 343 firefighters that lost their lives heroically, but all departments, Secret Service, law enforcement, Port Authority, sanitation, iron workers, union workers. You had civilians. You had a lot of construction guys down there too. Steam fitters. You had guys from construction guys, and tough guys. And there's a fact that was overlooked for a while, but a lot of guys got sick. More people got sick from the after effects of radiation and the components that were in the air that were deemed air quality approved. More guys passed away, and that's after time. I think it hits you acutely. We used to have to study these type of things in anti-terrorism, and the point of terroristic attacks is similar to something that may be going on now, which I'll drop into a little bit of detail if it's applicable. But any type of nuclear explosion or things of that nature release radiation, and the radiation will affect everybody over time, and it accumulates, and you need time, distance, and shielding is the only thing. We have certain detectors and devices that detect these things, but it's blind to the eye, to the smell, to the scent, and if you're not aware or given information, you're slowly dying and getting sick. And there was a nuclear chemical plant that exploded, they say, in Russia and Ukraine, and I don't know that is omitting radiation or not, but we just have to be aware that we're at the point where we're all going to be affected by separation, attacks, war. It's not at a point where things are isolated, where it's their problem, not ours. We're in this collectively. We're in this together. I denounce anything fear-based. News is majority not healthy. It feeds upon the amygdala part of the brain. The amygdala part of the brain is fear-based. It's driven by different things of that nature. The amygdala used to be the part of the brain that wanted to sense things that were fear when we were in a primitive state, like before we started evolving, and we needed to know what would assess the threats so we could be safe. So this device is a robot, and I call it the dog, meaning disconnection of God. Disconnection of God. Anything on this robot, the dog, the disconnection of God, is not the reality we live in. So if you're looking at something that's in a digital reality, your mind cannot decipher the difference between true reality. So your brain and the connections, the neural connections, they're firing in a different matter, in a synthetic matter. And one of my poems, one of my being's poems I got published was on iHeartRadio. And the radio, I'm not going to go there. And it was basically about the effects of social media, connection addiction to this device and the change it has in our chemistry of our brain that does not recognize the difference between our body part or it being my hand, per se, giving it electric signals and patterns. And when we're dependent on a device, a disconnection of God device, in my opinion, because for me, it disconnects us from God for the most part, in just my opinion, and that could be controversial. But when we're dependent on anything to feel good, except for us and being mindful, mind, body, and soul, and in the moment, and making ourselves feel better, this is a drug, and we're addicted to it. And the sad thing is that I could see the trajectory of things at times. I'm not always precisely and 100% correct, but for me, it won't be addressed, the addiction to the phone and the device, which is unhealthy, unbalanced. There won't be an addressment to it until they can profitize off of marking it a mental health crisis and remedy, because we're a pharmaceutical run nation, a business aspect of how to break people from this addiction after they could make a clinical terminology and how they could be the resolutionist and give the answer to the problem that we're all combating. So this will be a transgressional timeline before we see true mass or the higher ups even acknowledging it as a problem is when they can capitalize and profitize off of it. So
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Commercialize. I understand that you mean that the devices that we use can be addictive, especially to children, and it will continue to be promoted until that. I'm trying to re-echo your words to see if I understood what you mean. And that will not change until you mean that they want to commercialize the cure for the problem that we are facing. Is that correct?
Yes. So the terminology and the verbiage that we use is very important. Our mind is extremely powerful, and one thing I would say is, instead of calling it a device, have the acknowledgement that it's a robot. The device is a robot. The phone is a robot. It's when we could distinguish, because human consciousness needs to identify things and label things to understand it. And if we don't understand something, we try to compartmentalize it in the label, we cannot conceptualize it. It's part of the patterns of labeling. And the second thing is, everything you said was accurate. We are connected to this device, robotic device,
Yeah.
which we identify almost as a being or person in simple terminologies of the verbiage we use, such as my phone, which we identify things as mine. But when we're so dependent, we panic when we don't have it. And I've never heard somebody identifies life and death with a robotic device or an item. When the battery is low, it loses its power. But we use the terminology as the battery, my phone is dead. The phone is not alive. And it could seem like a small thing, but how we identify things are imperatively important to us understanding what it is. So that's that. And then the third thing is um, what's very scary. No, correction. What we should be consciously aware of is taking care of our children and our kids. When kids cannot play or kids lose that aspect of freedom and connection, especially in the development phases in adolescence, it changes and has effects that we probably won't be able to foresee or foreshadow. And it's detrimental and it's not fair. And when we are not protecting our innocent children, which is probably the closest thing that we may possibly be able to understand in a human form as a resemblance of pure innocence, or it could be comparable if you believe in God. If I believe in God, maybe I believe in him with all my heart and soul, or not. I need to speak to all of us. I do believe in God. Without God, we don't exist. Children can be a comparable comparison to the proof of the identity of what God is. So when we turn our backs on children, what are we really doing? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I was thinking as you were talking about, the fact that we use our phones. I mean, this is AI. And we use our phones because we are in a hybrid state in the world now. It's more so than ever after the COVID. And when you went to the children's section talking about how we need to protect our children, I absolutely 100% agree with you. I did notice that even because I was a pastor for 15 years, even before COVID, as the phones became more popular, as more apps came to light, as more games surfaced, I would do youth groups, and sometimes we would have a social, and we would have a barbecue, a lovely barbecue on a Friday night at youth. And as the years progressed, they went from sitting together in a circle and talking to each other to sitting next to each other in that circle at the barbecue, but all of them were talking to each other but on their phones. And I actually addressed that with them. And I started to take them on camps again. This was before COVID. And we would go on these camps where we had team building and we had time, that we spent in prayer, and we would have our own mental break time in the veld. That's what we call the bush here in South Africa, out in nature. And it was just lovely. But there was one thing. Before we started our day, I would bring a little basket, and everybody would put their phones in the basket, and they could get it later in the day after we've completed our activities. Obviously, to contact their family or, to play that game that they wanted to play. But after COVID, I think there are generations that are born into our new world now. And I look at how everything has changed. Technology is advancing. Children's reality has changed. We now have all of these virtual reality games that they are on. And I agree with you in the sense that we have to make sure that they have a foundational understanding of what reality is. So children, what's good for their mental well-being is they need to be grounded, like you mentioned. Now, how do they ground? They play outside in nature. They walk barefoot on the grass. They go on hikes. They go out to the amusement park for the day. They spend time with family. They swim. They ride their bicycles. They're on the playground. What we do have to be careful for is that there has to always be that balance. Yes, they have to know how to use AI because that's the future. They're going to go into the workplace. AI is going to be a part of their reality, but they need to know what's really real. So I try to balance my kids like that. We spend a lot of time outdoors and we have spiritual time as well. But of course, I keep them up to date with the developments of AI because my daughter is going to move into the workplace in a year or two, and she'll have to know how to use apps. She'll have to know how to use new computer programs. And, my son is very much into, he loves these Marvel movies. He always tells me he's gonna build Iron Man robots one day. So we have to make sure they are balanced. And I believe that's a part of protecting them, not on just on the one front, not just in teaching them about what's going on in the world and being fluent, because they have to make lives for themselves, they have to live, but also helping them to realize when they're grounded. And you used the phrase a couple of times, and I love that phrase. I actually appeared on a show that's very similar to that phrase. And you talked about being present in the moment. And I've traveled globally and I've done public speaking on this topic. How are you present in the moment? Tell us, how would you advise someone to be present in the moment? Because everybody's focusing on then and then and then, and some people are stuck on the past, on the past, on the past. They haven't moved on. How do we make sure, in your opinion, how do we stay present in that moment?
So you're touching on jumped on a different spectrum of things that are on the cusp of what's important. So I kind of noted. So for me, I'm not a person in entertainment or public eye or the little bit of notoriety that I have. It's not important about names and labels and running off on the things that you'd appeared on, big name brand things, which it's more important getting to the core. So I am an indigo child. And throughout, me and my brothers are indigo children. They just say that we're in tune with our sensory system a little bit differently. So I'm going to go a little ahead and then come back into what you said.
Yeah.
One, with the phone, with the robot, the dog, and my terminology, the disconnection of God. It could be a little bit extreme, especially if it's not something that somebody's thought about a lot. And somebody may disagree because you choose how you use it. And if you're consciously aware of what you're paying attention to and how long you're paying attention to, and you're being conscious, then it's not a dog. It's a tool that you're using. But I'm speaking on a collective as a larger mass, due to the manipulations in the algorithms and the predictive algorithms. If you're not conscious, it goes down a black hole and it's manipulative. But doesn't have to be, and it's essential for me. It's essential that we go about this in a proper way and use artificial intelligence to our advantage, not be used by it, because it is the future. But the amount of radiation out from the device, I think they're going to 5G and they say they want to go to 10G. When we were children or younger, being in front of the microwave was a no-no. It emitted high levels of radiation. The levels of radiation that the device emits with 5G and then even more 10G is dangerous. Then, so you could, at any time, you can keep your phone on airplane mode and negates that. They have radiation blocker put on the device that limits it. If we're being consciously active of these small things and in collective groups, turning it off, putting it in a basket, keeping it away, and connecting with each other, this is a fundamental way to move forward. And one thing, it's a little ahead, it's outside the spectrum that you want to go into. They're trying to implement the chip, which they're already doing, and overseas. Do not get a chip in your hand, in your body, by any means. Elon Musk wants to put Neuralink device so we could communicate with each other with something. I think it has a connection in your head to the brain or something like that. Absolutely do not do that. And it's going to be presented in a fashion that it's helping us. It's helping us unify. But everything that has not good intent is presented in a way that looks blissful. So on the device, we're in an alternate reality. It's not reality. When we're so programmed in social media, Facebook, and this device, it is similar in comparison to how we play people in the Sims game, but we're playing ourselves. And we forget that followers are not friends. And the alternate reality on this device is not the reality that we live in now. But what is reality? Reality is a collection of agreement on the perception of what we are all agreed to. So it's altering. What comes next is simulation reality. Once we're abiding by simulated reality and we're communicating in simulated reality for basic things, they go through the kids with the games because it seems fun. The next step is implementing these devices in us at all times. It's a slow progression. When we're stuck on a TikTok or we're analyzing this over and over, it's the contrary to the concept of ancient wisdom, what has to do with mantras and chanting. When you're seeing the same repetitive cycle, you're going in a different state of consciousness. So how we chant, I am love, I forgive myself, thank you, I love you. I am love, I forgive myself, thank you, love you. I am love, I forgive myself, thank you, love you. It's a simple chant. It programs our subconscious and our unconscious, which we're 95% unconscious and subconscious, and we're 5% conscious. I said that fast, and for the first time, it could hit people in a certain way. So slower. 5% of our consciousness is what we are. Just like 5% on or around 5% matter of the universe we understand. About 68%. And these numbers will change because perception changes and verbiage changes with the times that we're in. But from our understanding, about 95% of the universe and about 95% of our consciousness, well, the universe is dark and dark matter, which some of that we don't even know. We don't have any idea what it is. And then to correlate it with consciousness, 95% of consciousness is unconscious, is subconscious and unconscious. And we should be acknowledging that and turning within to understand what we are. The only face that you, anyone listening, me, will never see eye to eye in our existence of life is our own. The only face I will never see is the face that I call my own. When I see you, it's a reflection of me. We understand self by identifying the world around us. Everything around us is a reflection of our mind. So turn off the outside distractions. Concentrate. Omega. On our higher self. Techniques of ancient wisdom. And we are the reality, and whatever we put out to the universe is what comes back. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I think I'll explain it in the terms that I understand it. We need to get to a place where we are more self-aware And we need to get to a place where we really reinforce that self-love. Because if we want to be in alignment with ourselves, that's the first step, be in alignment with yourself. If we want to be in alignment with the universe, we have to have a higher level of consciousness. We have to be aware of our surroundings. We have to be aware of who we are, what we're good at, maybe things that we are not so good at, things that we need to work on. And I always talk about, especially when I speak to individuals and guests that are more in tune with their spiritual side, more in tune with the world of energy. We always talk about meditation. Are we meditating? How are we meditating? Are we breathing? How are we breathing? Because there's different ways to meditate for different things. There's different ways to manifest. There's different times to manifest. And there's different ways to breathe for different things. Now, breathing sounds very basic to some people, but I've heard testimonies of individuals that really started to invest in breathing exercises and that really accomplished great feats because they didn't realize in the beginning of doing these breathing exercises how important and how potent it can be to change your breathing. Now I'll illustrate it in this way. When I was a young child, if I would get anxious in a situation, I would literally stop breathing deeply. I would have shallow breaths. And what happens to
Yes.
the rest of the physiology of your body if you breathe only in a shallow manner? You're not breathing properly, so nothing is happening in the right manner. You're not using your energy the right way. Your brain's not getting, your heart's not getting that oxygen. So simple things. Tell us more, Anne, about your meditation practices, your breathing, your energy work. Because I believe that when you talked about the subconscious, you talked about the I am statements. Maybe, I don't know, as an indigo child, you'll have to teach us on that. Do you work with your chakras, or what is your energy work like?
Oh, so there's different schools of thoughts about the chakras, but they have schools of thoughts that there's an abundant amount of chakras. And in Buddhism, they say there's an abundant amount of Buddhas. So essentially, maybe Buddha is just a higher form of a chakra, and we could tap into it at all times. So I'm a thing called omnism. I'm not going to explain it right now, but then they have the basic philosophy, which a lot of the world's not totally aware of either. Is 7 chakras. So it's dependent on perspective, but it's important. All of these are different schools of thoughts that are tapped into a truth that is of a higher place, but things that are important of what's true to you. And just like so, the breathing is essentially important. There's a lot we breathe shallow, and it's part of survival mode. When we're in survival mode and we go into default, and then we're just doing things on autopilot, we're breathing shallow. We can't expand into different parts of our mind and our higher self unless we're in the moment. And whatever that is for you, it could be tapping your foot. 1, 2, 3. One, the Masons, a thing, one of the tricks with the Masonic order, they put the hand, a family, put their hand in their pocket, and just, I don't know exactly what it does, but it's grounding. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. For me, it's chanting. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Oh, man. channeling the laws of the universe, the energies of the laws of the universe to come to me now and to be in the present moment. And when you understand that the future has not happened, the past is not existent. If we're not positively thinking, being in the moment, in the present moment, in the now is reality. And that's how we stay conscious of, I don't know, awareness. But if we're, I don't know. I don't know what to.
So these are all practices that people can try if they are in search of that higher consciousness, if they want that enlightenment. Yes. I've served as a religious servant for many years in the churches, and for a very large part of my life during those years, I didn't have a good view on energy, universe,
right.
Meditation, because it was all part of the doctrines that we followed. And then I went through a traumatic event in my life, and there was a higher level of consciousness that set in. And for the first time, I realized that my religious beliefs, because I believe in God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, that's my personal religious belief. But I also believe in science, and I also believe that we are all energy. And I believe in the universe, that everything is set out in a certain plan for us. And that doesn't have to clash with my religious views, because God is also the God of science. God made everything, in my opinion, and science is not our enemy. Energy is not our enemy. Meditation is not our enemy. It doesn't mean that we don't live a beautiful religious life or a relationship with our Creator if we love to do energy work or if we love to do meditation. I do energy work regularly. I meditate regularly. I do my breathing. I come into alignment the way that I know how to, the way that I've trusted myself and guided myself to that place to. I believe in grounding. There's different ways of grounding. Some people would put like a little ribbon around their wrist. That's, for instance, for people that are, very anxious in situations. They would put a little ribbon around their wrist, and if they get anxious, they would play with it. That's grounding. I have a tattoo that grounds me. I put it there, especially if I feel like I need to be grounded, then I rub my tattoo, that grounds me. Or I walk with my bare feet on the grass, that grounds me. So these things are not in opposition of each other. And I think that's where people have that big lack of understanding. If you go and look at scientific research, and science is, and I'm going to say that again, science is not against religion. Science is not our enemy. I also don't believe that technological advancements have to necessarily be our enemy. It's a tool, like you said. But to get back to the science, if I say I carry a presence, so I'm body, soul, and spirit, and I carry a presence because I'm Juanita. That's my presence that I carry. Another train of thought would say that I have an energy, right? So they would describe my presence that they can see as my aura, for instance. That's their terminology. Doesn't mean that it's woo-hoo or weird. Then we'll have the scientific thought where the scientists will say, we have a magnetic field that emanates 3 feet around us. So it's a magnetic field, and it's proven by science, that emanates from our hearts 3 feet around us. So when we come into contact with people, in essence, we come in contact with the energy. Now, those are just different ways that people explain how they perceive it. And I think it's very important. I always make sure that I treat people with dignity. I always make sure that I keep an open mind about things. But still, to us, we have to decide that we will be true to ourselves. So I believe in God. but I also believe that our energy is very important, especially in the things that I'm busy with. Energy is extremely important. So tell us, and you want to raise the consciousness of people out there. You want them to become more aware of themselves. What, because you've been on different shows, I believe you've been on Oprah. There's other shows that you've been on. Just tell the audience the shows that you were on, and was this the topic that you discussed, or were there other topics that you discussed on Oprah?
Yeah. So, been in the public eye. There was a lot of things that were discussed that were beside the point of importance. And for me, um, a lot of times, oftentimes, we have to go through trauma on hardships to search within. Since the pandemic, it seems like we've really had to question who and what we are. So, me turning within had to do with sexual abuse by members of one of the most protected um, groups in the Catholic Church to this day, which we're not that really informed about. So when I was younger, me and my brothers got abused by one of these members, and they are protected in a fashion that we're unaware of. And I just ask that God forgive them for they not know what they do. So some of the topic matters had to do with not this. So the things that you were talking about are beyond what people have been given information on yet. There is there is a field of energy around us, and from my studies, it is around 6 to 9 feet, and it's called electromagnetic field. Just like the Earth has electromagnetic field, and it's called the Schumann frequency. The Schumann frequency went to about an all-time high, and these are things outside of the Earth. These are things that when they're teaching college and university and medical science, they're not even informed. They don't teach these things. This is like, I don't know if you would even call it hidden information. Majority of our genome, they don't even teach to medical doctors in schooling at Harvard and Columbia. I have a close friend that graduated Columbia. But we do have electromagnetic field around us. And what you identify as God is true to you. I am nobody. We are nobody to tell you how to, as long as it's an understanding that you have. And for me, we only find that in silence and going within, because in a world of deception, everybody has an opinion and a judgment and a critique, as if we know it all when we don't know anything. We're in times of chaos and not understanding. And if you don't believe what I identify and understand, then you're wrong. When we could share each other's perspective and see from the other eyes, that's when we grow. When we're in fear and you have to understand or think how I think, I'm scared. And I want to identify that I know everything and I'm right because I feel safe. And if you don't agree, then you're an enemy. We grow in evolution when we respect everybody's perspective. And for me, that electromagnetic field, when they identify what we are beyond an atom, beyond energy that vibrates, beyond our cellular structure or Planck, they don't have tools and instruments to totally identify what goes further into that. And we're light. So that's that. And then majority I garnered a lot of attention together. I did the thing called the firefighter calendar, and then I was signed to an agency, and we had a following, and that was that. And I did the firefighter calendar multiple times, and we have a wide range of a fan base from that, and that's great. But for me, the only things that's important is how are we helping each other, and the state of in them where we're growing or not, or going or not. And then the other thing is my family's bloodline, my ancestry. We have they would call it a royal bloodline, like aristocracy. One is not to be put forward until we have a aristocracy royal bloodline on both sides until the Vatican doesn't want to go forward with it or not at this time from limited conversations we had. But then the other side of my family's ancestry and bloodline is it's a dynasty that was from I don't know, years ago. So that's about that.
Yeah. Let's see. We wanted to talk about the raising of consciousness. We've done that. You were a firefighter. You were doing modeling for a long time. You're also a published poet. Would you like to tell us the title of your book, your poetry book?
Well, no. So yeah. So we talked about a lot, and if anybody wants to follow me or be updated with any information of when we're coming out with the book, yes, I was published with my poetry on iHeartRadio. I have to coordinate with my PR agent and my publishing company. Probably in 2024, we'll be putting more things out and then releasing the book and the project and then a podcast. But King Dharma is one of the Instagrams, King Dharma. And it's also the other hashtag to it is God's Child underscore Heaven Sent. One God's Child underscore Heaven Sent. Okay. And then the email, somebody wants to email, contact me, is not here. NOTHEREE369 at gmail.com. That's NOTHEREE 369 at gmail.com.
Wonderful.
And then the private email is angelsareamongus369 at protonmail.com. And yeah, that's
good.
About it for that.
Thank you, A. Do you want to end our session with any words of wisdom? What do you want to leave with the audience? What's your final words to them?
Prayer, scripture. If you believe in Jesus Christ, pray. Whatever it is that needs to connect you to God of your understanding and identification, please be in a routine of meditation, prayer. And the heart chakra is Yam. So if you want, we could collectively, that goes to a vision of a goal that I would like to leave this, when I leave this earth, would be at 11:11 a.m. across the world, the 11:11 or 11:11 at night, 111. We all sat in unison, holding hands across the globe, or holding or hugging your partner, whoever's next to you. If you can't do that, just hold them with a hug of holding hands with your heart. The electromagnetic field, which we touched on. And right now, if you feel like doing it, it's called Yam. 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 It's the heart chakra. So if it's 11:11 or at this time, or be conscious of when you see 1111111 or 11:11 at your time, right? We can omit this together and connect. Yeah. I'm thinking and I'm feeling love. And it's coming through my third eye. In this moment, I'm releasing it through my heart chakra. Yeah. And that's it.
Thank you.
That's what I want to leave with.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you making time, and it's always good to have, many different perspectives on different topics. I think it's good that we listened to your views and the things that you're passionate about. And for the audience members, anyone that wants to reach out to A Majestic, please do so, and we will make his social media handles available as well. So thank you so much, A, and we appreciate you.
Appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody, and thank you for your time and your consideration, and your viewpoints are respected and appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, A. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're the #1 fastest growing community and tribe of some of the highest level entrepreneurs all around the country and around the world. We're in 36 states across the U.S., in 11 international countries, and over 240 plus members, growing every single day. And I'm honored, excited, and I'm glad to say that I'm proud to be the official sponsor of the Meticulous Moments podcast with Juanita Cap. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm excited for this journey.
Thought-Provoking Change and Jonathan Ellis, the champion maker, are proud sponsors of Meticulous Moments and Juanita Cap. Head on over now to thoughtprovokingchange.com/opportunity and join us today, where alongside myself, Jonathan Ellis, the champion maker, and our team of highly qualified, incredible individuals will help you pull out the champion within yourself. We're here to bring out the champion that we know lives inside of you, that you may be challenged to manifest and to bring into your forefront. Join us today and align with us to help yourself level up and see what you can bring to the community at large. We're always looking for highly qualified individuals. This is an application-only process. So head on over today, put in your information, and let's communicate. And let's see if you are a fit for us and we are a fit for you. We look forward to welcoming you inside the community now.
Hey everybody, my name is Patrick Rude. I'm the owner of Rude Financial Services, a proud sponsor of the Meticulous Moments podcast, hosted and directed by the beautiful, strong, and intelligent Juanita Cap. I cannot tell you enough about what this woman has done with this podcast and the effect that she has had on me and all of the other sponsors and people that listen. Don't miss it.